The human colony of Gliese 581 grams had been a peaceful outpost, a far cry from the chaos of galactic war. Nestled on the edge of a thriving star system, it was a place where families raised children and dreamed of futures untouched by the violence of the universe. Its atmosphere was calm and its people content. Their lives were simple and quiet, but none of them knew that would change forever in a flash of light that streaked across the sky. Without warning, the peace shattered as alien ships appeared out of nowhere, their arrival masked by the darkness of space. They moved with terrifying precision, descending upon the colony in perfect coordination, ships that seemed to defy all known laws of physics, opening up to reveal armored soldiers, alien in shape and color. Their weapons crackled with unnatural energy, and within minutes the once tranquil city had become a battlefield. The human inhabitants were caught off guard, scrambling to defend themselves with primitive weapons against enemies whose power far surpassed their own. The sounds of blaster fire echoed through the air as buildings crumbled to dust under the onslaught. Human soldiers fought valiantly, but they were no match for the alien forces, as each blow from the invaders seemed to tear through them like paper. The humans were too few and too ill prepared for the horror that had descended upon them. And yet it was not the violence itself that would haunt the survivors the most, but what came next as the alien invaders moved through the colony like a tidal wave. They were not interested in destroying everything. No, their objective was something far more sinister. They had come for the children, those precious innocent beings who had been playing in the streets only hours before, who had no idea that their world was about to come to an end. The aliens swept through the city, abducting children from their homes, grabbing them from schools and playgrounds without mercy. The humans tried to stop them, but it was useless. They were too fast, too strong, and too numerous. Within an hour, the majority of the children had been taken, leaving the adults helpless and shattered in the wake of their abduction. The invaders left behind nothing but destruction. The once bustling streets were now eerily silent. Only the cries of those left behind echoed as the realization hit the adults like a thunderclap. The most precious thing in their world had been taken from them. The children were gone. The invaders were not here for resources or territory. They were here to take the very future of humanity itself. The fear was palpable. It wasn't just a raid, it wasn't just an attack. It was a statement, a warning that humanity was not safe anywhere, not even in the quietest corners of the galaxy. As the dust began to settle and the sounds of the battle faded into the background, the survivors were left to pick up the pieces of their shattered world, knowing that the aliens had underestimated one thing: humanity's ability to protect its own. And in the far reaches of the galaxy, beyond the reaches of the human war machine, the alien ships carrying the children zoomed toward their unknown destination, unaware that they had made a grave mistake, one they would soon regret. Captain Lena stood at the edge of the command center, her mind racing as she watched the feed of the colony being decimated on the holographic display. She had seen battles before, but this was different. There was no hesitation in the alien strikes. They moved with surgical precision, and in their wake the lives of innocent civilians were destroyed. She clenched her fists, her jaw tightening, as the message from the colony reached her again and again. The same words echoed in her ears. The children had been taken. It was clear that the invaders were not interested in killing. They were after something far more valuable, something humanity could not afford to lose. Lena took a deep breath. She had lost family to alien raids before, but this felt different. These were children, the future of humanity, and the thought of them in the hands of these cold and ruthless invaders sent a fire burning in her chest. Her fingers hovered over the console as she activated the comlink, sending a direct message to command. The tone in her voice was calm, but beneath it simmered a deep fury. This was no longer just a mission. This was personal. Commander Tarek, we need immediate authorization to mobilize a special operations team, she said, her voice unwavering, her eyes locked on the burning remnants of the colony on the screen. This isn't just another raid. The aliens took children. We can't allow them to escape with our future. Commander Tarek's voice crackled through the speaker, though the transmission was slightly distorted. The situation was dire. Lena, he said, there's nothing we can do right now. The fleet is engaged in multiple fronts. We can't risk losing another ship. Tarek paused for a moment, but then his tone shifted. Lena, I know what this means to you. But we have to prioritize the war effort. You know that Lena's heart pounded in her chest. She understood the gravity of the war, but the idea of abandoning the children to an unknown fate was something she couldn't accept. Her gaze shifted to a photo on her desk, a picture of her younger brother, who had been lost in a similar attack years ago. She knew what it meant to lose family, the kind of loss that never really went away. But this felt different. It wasn't just the loss of life. It was the loss of innocence, the future itself, and the thought of those children being tortured for experiments or worse sent a chill down her spine. She stood up straight, her voice firm. As she responded, "Commander, I'll do it with or without your approval." She disconnected the transmission and turned to her team assembled in the room. They had all heard the conversation, and they knew what came next. She took a moment to gather herself before speaking to the group, her voice steady but full of determination. "We've been given our orders. We'll go in with a small crew, hit fast and hit hard. We'll rescue those children and get them back, no matter what. The rest of the fleet is too busy to help us, so we'll do this alone." She glanced at her team, each of them nodding their agreement. They were all seasoned fighters, but this mission would test them to their limits. Their mission was no longer just to fight for survival. It was to fight for the future of humanity. Her mind flashed to the unknown alien force that had taken the children. They didn't know what they were dealing with. They had no idea what a human was capable of when pushed to the edge. They would learn soon enough. One way or another, the children would be coming home, and Lena would make sure of it. The alien forces aboard the massive warship known as the Arcith moved with ruthless efficiency, their cold eyes and sharp minds calculating every action. As they carried out their mission, the ship's halls echoed with the hum of high-tech machinery, the very air itself thick with the energy of alien technology designed to bring humanity to its knees. But beneath the towering metal walls and the sterile corridors, something strange was beginning to happen. Something the aliens had not accounted for. The children they had taken began to show signs of resistance, a resistance that was not based on strength or physical ability, but on something far more powerful and entirely human. The Arcith's commander, Xerox, watched from his command chair, his alien eyes glowing faintly as he surveyed the progress of the children's containment. These humans were weaker than most species they had encountered in the galaxy, yet something about their minds intrigued him. The children were not as docile as expected. Their will to survive was greater than they had anticipated at first. It had seemed like a straightforward mission: abduct the humans, train them for their war effort, experiment with their biology, unlock new ways to advance their own kind. But now the commander was growing uneasy. He had noticed patterns in the behavior of the human children. A few were attempting to resist the mind probes they had set up to extract information. They seemed to understand more than they should. Their intelligence was far beyond what Xerox had predicted. A young girl named Ellie, for instance, had repeatedly outsmarted the systems designed to track and suppress her movements whenever a guard approached her. She had found a way to create distractions, simple yet effective. The ship's automated systems malfunctioned every time she was near. Another child named Jackson was calm in the face of all this, as though the situation was somehow not new to him. His eyes would scan the surroundings in a way that suggested he was thinking several steps ahead of his captors. It was unnerving to Xerox, who was used to complete control over his prisoners. But these children were different. They were resilient, their minds too clever for simple containment. Their minds worked in ways that felt alien to the aliens themselves. Xerox ordered another round of tests to break their spirits. But each time the humans adapted to the pain and fear the aliens inflicted. They responded in a way the aliens could never have anticipated. They fought back, not with weapons or brute force, but with willpower. Their ability to endure and to learn was unlike anything Xerox had ever encountered. He stared at the monitor, studying the human children in greater detail. What was it about them that made them so difficult to control? He thought back to his past encounters with other species. He had never seen a reaction quite like this. The humans were not the weakest species in the galaxy. After all, they were not the most powerful either. But there was something else, something beneath the surface that made them dangerous. It wasn't their technology or their numbers. It was their unyielding determination, their instinct to fight for their own, no matter the cost. This realization struck him like a bolt of lightning. The humans were not just potential soldiers. They were an entirely new kind of threat. This was no longer about capturing a few children for experimentation. It was about preventing the rise of an enemy that could break through any barrier and destroy even the most advanced civilizations without ever firing a shot. It was a realization that came too late. The ship's AI beeped urgently as it detected something moving through the ventilation shafts of the ship. A human signal. It was the intruders. The humans had already come for their children, and Serac had made the fatal mistake of underestimating them. Captain Lena and her team were already on board the stealth ship, a sleek vessel designed for covert operations. The ship's engines hummed softly, barely making a sound as it slipped through the void of space, hidden in the shadows. The mission was dangerous, the stakes higher than ever. The team was small, but they had trained for this moment their whole lives. This wasn't just a rescue mission. It was a fight for survival. Lena stood in front of her team, her eyes scanning the faces of the men and women who had volunteered to follow her into enemy territory. "We hit the Arceth hard and fast," she said, her voice steady but determined. "We won't have the luxury of time. The longer we stay on that ship, the more likely they'll figure out we're here. We'll use the ship's ventilation systems to infiltrate undetected and avoid the bulk of their security measures. Our priority is the children. Nothing else matters." Each of her team members nodded in agreement. Sergeant Williams, the heavy weapons expert, checked his gear, making sure his combat rifle was loaded and his grenades were secured. Lieutenant Rivera, the tech specialist, tinkered with a device that would disable the ship's security systems. Dr. Parks, the medic, adjusted his medical kit, his face set in grim determination. These were the best soldiers humanity had to offer, and Lena trusted them with her life. "Remember, we don't engage unless absolutely necessary," she continued. "We go in, grab the kids, and get out before they know we're there. If we start a fight, we'll have every alien on the ship after us. Let's not give them that chance." The team nodded in agreement, and Lena gave the signal. Rivera activated the ship's cloaking device, rendering them invisible to the alien ship sensors. The Arceth loomed ahead, a massive fortress in space, its sleek black hull gleaming in the light of distant stars. As they approached, the tension in the air thickened, and Lena's heart rate quickened. This was it, the moment when everything would either go right or fall apart. They docked at a small, uncharted section of the ship, a maintenance airlock that had been overlooked by the aliens. Lena's team silently slipped out of the stealth ship, weapons at the ready. They moved like shadows through the corridors, blending into the darkened hallways of the Arceth as they made their way toward the central holding area where the children were being kept. The alien ship was eerily quiet, and for a moment, Lena wondered if their presence had already been detected. But then she remembered. Aliens were arrogant. They'd assumed their technology was so far beyond humanity's that they didn't need to be careful. They believed that the children were simply tools to be used, not something worth protecting. Lena's mind was sharp as they navigated the dark, unfamiliar corridors. She felt a gnawing sense of urgency. Every second mattered. The children could be suffering right now, tortured, experimented on, and tested beyond human limits. She couldn't let them endure that any longer. As they rounded a corner, Rivera signaled for them to stop. Ahead of them, an alien patrol moved down the hallway. The team crouched low, hidden in the shadows. The aliens passed by without noticing them. The plan was working, but Lena knew it wouldn't last forever. They had to move quickly before their luck ran out. Finally, they reached the children's holding area. It was a cold, sterile room with the faint hum of alien machines in the background. The children were all there, lying in small cages, their faces pale and eyes wide with fear. But when they saw the humans, their expressions shifted to one of hope. Lena's heart sank. There they were, the children of her people, so close to freedom. But the mission wasn't over. Not yet. She motioned for her team to secure the room and began cutting through the alien locks that held the children captive. As she worked, a strange feeling washed over her. This wasn't just a mission anymore. It was something deeper, something personal. She wasn't just rescuing the children for the future of humanity. She was rescuing them because she knew what it felt like to lose everything. With a final snap, the lock clicked open. The children were free. But as they stepped out of their cages, the ship's alarm suddenly blared, piercing the silence. The aliens had found them. The countdown had begun. As the last of the alien locks snapped open, Lena's heart raced. The children, young and frightened, began to stir from their makeshift prisons. They had been held in cages, each one separated by cold metallic bars, their eyes wide and filled with terror. But when they saw the humans standing before them, armed, determined, and resolute, their fear slowly turned to something else: hope. Lena quickly surveyed the room, counting the children. There were 12 in total, ranging in age from 5 to 14. Their clothes were ragged, their bodies frail from weeks, perhaps longer, of confinement. Some were curled up in the corners, others huddled together, as if seeking comfort in their shared misery. But even in their weakened state, there was something about them that set them apart. There was a quiet defiance in their eyes, a spark of life that refused to be extinguished. "Don't be afraid," Lena said gently, her voice warm yet urgent. "We're here to get you out of here, but we have to move fast. The aliens will be coming for us any moment." The children nodded, some with tears in their eyes, others still too stunned to speak. Lena motioned for her team to begin securing the area. Sergeant Williams positioned himself near the door, watching for any signs of movement. Rivera, the tech specialist, was already working to disable the ship's security systems, knowing that every second counted. Dr. Parks moved to check the children's health, assessing their condition and offering them what little comfort he could. But it wasn't just the humans who had begun to stir. In the midst of all the chaos, the children themselves were starting to exhibit signs of something unexpected. Ellie, the young girl who had already shown signs of cleverness earlier, was the first to act. She had been quiet up until now, but as Lena watched, Ellie's eyes locked onto a nearby console that had been left partially exposed. The girl walked over to it without hesitation, her small fingers brushing over the controls. Within moments, she had accessed the system, bypassing alien security protocols with ease. "Captain, look!" Rivera shouted, his voice filled with disbelief. "She's hacking their systems. She's overriding their security code." Lena's eyes widened as Ellie's fingers flew across the console. The child was somehow navigating the alien interface as if it was second nature, bypassing every firewall and encryption with a fluidity that no human should have been able to achieve. The child was unlocking doors, disabling motion sensors, and even scrambling the tracking devices the aliens had implanted in their minds. "She's doing it," Lena muttered, a surge of awe and disbelief rising in her chest. She's hacking into their systems." Ellie looked up from the console, her eyes filled with quiet pride. "They left the systems open," she said in a soft, matter-of-fact tone. "I just had to find the right codes." The room fell silent, and for a moment, the chaos of their escape seemed to fade into the background. This was no ordinary child. Ellie wasn't just clever, she was a prodigy. The aliens had underestimated humanity, but they had especially underestimated the potential of its young minds. As Ellie continued to work, Jackson, the calm boy Lena had noticed earlier, slowly stood up. His face was serene, almost meditative, as though he were surveying the room, calculating every move. He walked over to Lena, his eyes meeting hers, and then to the children. His expression was unsettling in its calmness, as if the chaos around him had no power over him. "Captain," Jackson said, his voice quiet but resolute, "they're coming. They'll know we're here soon." Lena's heart skipped a beat. The boy was right. The ship's alarm systems had blared moments ago, signaling an imminent threat. But Jackson's eerie calmness, The way he could assess the situation with such clarity made Lena realize that the children were not as helpless as they seemed. "We'll fight," Lena said, her voice steady, meeting Jackson's gaze. "We'll fight for you, all of you. But we have to move now." As Ellie continued to work on the alien systems, disabling alarms and creating a pathway for their escape, Jackson took a deep breath, his eyes scanning the room one more time. There was a flicker of something beyond mere survival, in his gaze. The children were not the helpless victims the aliens had thought they were. They had strength, ingenuity, and a collective will to survive that was just as powerful as any weapon. The aliens had made a critical mistake in underestimating them. And now, they would learn exactly what these children were capable of. The air in the holding area was thick with tension as Ellie continued to work at the alien control console. Her tiny fingers moved with swift precision, her mind seemingly attuned to the foreign technology that had once seemed so invincible. Lena watched her in awe, her breath shallow as she marveled at the sheer brilliance of this child. The aliens had thought they could break these young humans, but they had underestimated their ingenuity. "Keep going, Ellie," Lena urged, her voice low but firm. "We're almost there." Ellie didn't look up. Her focus was absolute, the flickering lights of the console casting shadows across her face as she worked to unravel the alien network. The other children were gathered around, some still too frightened to move, others too stunned by the chaotic turn of events to comprehend the situation. But there was one thing they all shared, an undeniable sense of hope sparked by their brief interaction with the humans. Lena's attention shifted as she heard Rivera's voice over the comms. "Captain, we've got incoming. The aliens are closing in fast. I've disabled most of their security, but it won't hold for long. We need to move now." Lena's pulse quickened. She turned back to the children, her heart heavy with the weight of the situation. "Listen up," she said, her voice steady but urgent. "We're going to get you out of here, but we need to stay focused. Ellie, is the door cleared?" Ellie nodded without hesitation, her eyes never leaving the console. "Almost there," she said. "Just one more." "Got it." A soft hum filled the room as the last of the security locks disengaged. The children's eyes widened in surprise and relief, their shackles of captivity falling away. Lena knew they couldn't waste another second. The aliens would be coming for them any moment now. "Get to the vents. Now." Lena barked. "Move." The children scrambled to their feet, their legs shaky from the confinement. The older ones helped the younger ones, guiding them toward the narrow maintenance tunnels that led to the ship's exterior. The team followed close behind, keeping a watchful eye on every movement. Sergeant Williams took the rear, ensuring they weren't followed, while Dr. Parks checked on the children's condition, making sure no one had sustained serious injuries. Just as they reached the access point, the alarms blared once again. This time, it wasn't just a warning. It was a countdown. The Archith's response was immediate, a sudden surge of hostile energy from the nearby corridors. The alien forces had arrived. "Move, move, move," Lena shouted as the sound of heavy boots echoed down the hall. The team was nearly through the maintenance shaft when a barrage of energy blasts struck the walls, narrowly missing them. Rivera cursed under her breath, her fingers dancing across her device as she hacked into the alien security to buy them precious moments. "They're locking down the corridors," Rivera said urgently. "We're almost trapped." But then, from the depths of the hallway, the quiet voice of Jackson cut through the chaos. He had been walking in front of the group, calm as ever, his expression thoughtful but determined. "Captain," he said, his voice carrying the weight of experience far beyond his years. "They don't know how to deal with us." Lena looked at him, confused for a moment. "What do you mean?" Jackson's eyes were focused ahead, scanning the passage. "We're not like them. We don't think like them. They'll try to force us into a corner, but we won't stay there." A chilling realization washed over Lena. Jackson wasn't just talking about himself and the children. He was talking about humanity as a whole. The human instinct was to survive, yes, but it was more than that. Humans were adaptable, unpredictable. No matter how powerful the aliens were, they could never truly understand how humans would respond when pushed to their limits. As if on cue, the first wave of alien soldiers rounded the corner, their weapons aimed at the team. But they hadn't anticipated the sudden onslaught of gunfire that erupted from Sergeant Williams, his rifle tearing through the air in precise, rapid bursts. He dropped 2 of the soldiers before they could react, their armored bodies crashing to the floor. The rest hesitated for a moment, and in that precious second, Lena made her move. "Go, go, go," she shouted, leading the children into the maintenance shaft. The team followed swiftly behind, and as they moved, Lena glanced back to see Williams covering their retreat with lethal accuracy. The aliens were formidable, but humanity's adaptability, its refusal to stay down, no matter the odds, was proving to be their greatest weapon. The sound of the alien soldiers' pursuit echoed in the distance, but the team was already slipping into the depths of the ventilation system, the ship's dark, winding passages offering a fleeting hope of escape. As they crawled through the narrow shafts, Lena felt a strange sense of power growing within her. They weren't just running away. They were fighting for something greater than survival. They were fighting for a future, for the children, for the essence of humanity itself. And in that moment, she knew. The tide was turning. The ventilation shafts were narrow, and the air was stifling as Lena and her team navigated their way through the darkened passages. Sweat trickled down her forehead as she moved carefully, making sure not to make a sound. The sound of alien footsteps echoed through the halls of the Archith, the relentless pursuit of the soldiers who were closing in fast. Lena's heart hammered in her chest. They couldn't afford to be caught now. The children were depending on them. As they crawled through the tight space, Lena glanced over her shoulder, seeing the determination etched on the faces of her team. Sergeant Williams was in the rear, his rifle slung across his back, constantly scanning for threats. Dr. Parks kept a careful eye on the children, helping them through the narrow passages, while Rivera stayed at the front, her fingers flying over her portable device to hack into the ship's systems whenever needed. The children moved quietly behind them, their small faces tense, but filled with the same resolve that Lena had come to admire. Suddenly, there was a loud noise, an explosion that shook the air around them. Lena's heart lurched. She knew what it meant. The aliens had breached the maintenance shaft, and they were closing in. "Go faster," Lena ordered, her voice tight with urgency. "We need to get to the escape pods before they lock them down." The team picked up the pace, crawling faster, their breaths shallow and quick. They had to make it. There was no other choice. As they rounded a corner, Rivera froze, her eyes flickering with the screen of her device. "Captain," Rivera said, her voice strained, "the main escape pods are being locked. The alien command is cutting off access to them." Lena cursed under her breath. "Can we override it?" Rivera's fingers danced across the device's screen, her brow furrowed in concentration. "I'm trying, but the encryption is heavy. It's like they knew we'd try this." She paused, then cursed again. "I can't get past it. We'll have to find another way." Lena's mind raced. They couldn't afford to be trapped here, and they couldn't risk waiting for Rivera to crack the encryption. Time was running out. But then, as if the universe had decided to offer them a chance, a thought struck her, a dangerous one, but their only option. "We're going to the secondary escape pods," Lena said. "They're deeper in the ship, but the access routes should still be clear. We'll move fast." Rivera nodded, her face grim. "Let's hope the aliens don't catch on." The team continued down the narrow passage, moving as swiftly and silently as possible. The air grew colder, and the ship's hum was more pronounced now, as though the Archith itself was aware of the impending battle. Lena's thoughts raced, but she kept her focus on the task at hand. They had to get the children to safety. The thought of failing them, of leaving them in the hands of the aliens, was too unbearable. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached the access point to the secondary escape pods. Lena didn't hesitate. She pressed her hand to the panel, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. The escape pod bay was dimly lit, a stark contrast to the cold, sterile corridors of the Archith. The pod stood ready, sleek and designed for a quick departure, but there was no time to waste. "Get in," Lena shouted, ushering the children toward the pods. "Move, move, move." One by one, the children climbed into the pods, their faces a mixture of fear and hope. Dr. Parks and Sergeant Williams helped them inside, making sure each pod was secured. Rivera stayed close to Lena, her fingers still working on her device. "There's only one pod left," Rivera said, her voice tense. "The aliens are close, Captain. We're running out of time." Lena glanced at the final pod. There wasn't enough room for everyone. The harsh reality hit her like a wave. She turned to Jackson, the calm, steady boy who had been by her side since the beginning. "Jackson," she said, her voice thick with urgency, "you'll have to stay behind. There's no other way." The boy looked at her, his eyes unwavering. "I understand," he said quietly. "I'll make sure the aliens don't follow you." Lena's heart ached. The bond she had formed with the children, especially Jackson, was unlike anything she had ever known. He was willing to sacrifice himself for them, for humanity. She didn't have time to argue. The aliens were almost upon them. "Go now," Jackson urged, his voice calm and steady. "We'll be okay." Lena didn't hesitate. She climbed into the final pod, pressing the launch sequence with shaky fingers. The engines hummed to life, and within seconds, the escape pod shot out of the bay, hurtling away from the Archith. The harsh, cold void of space enveloped them as they broke free from the alien ship, the distant stars offering a sliver of hope. Behind them, the Archith loomed, a reminder of the battle they had just fought. But it was still there, alive, waiting. And Lena knew that no matter what happened, they had just begun the real fight for humanity's survival. The stars stretched out in the endless expanse of space as the escape pod hurtled away from the Archith. The cold silence of the void enveloped the small vessel, leaving only the hum of its engines in the background. Inside, the children huddled together, their eyes wide with a mix of awe and fear. The adrenaline of their escape had faded, leaving behind a numbness, as if the enormity of what had just happened hadn't fully sunk in. Lena sat at the front of the pod, her hands tightly gripping the controls, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts. She couldn't stop thinking about Jackson, the calm, brave boy who had given up his chance to escape so that the others could live. He had told her to go, to save the children, but the weight of his sacrifice pressed heavily on her heart. She couldn't shake the image of his steady gaze as she left him behind, alone on the Archith, facing the unknown. "Captain," Rivera's voice broke through her thoughts. "We're clear of the Archith. We've made it." Lena nodded, but her eyes were fixed on the viewport, her gaze distant. She had to focus. The mission wasn't over yet. The children were safe, for now. But there were still so many questions. How had they been taken in the first place? Why had the aliens targeted them? And what were the implications of their survival? "We need to find a safe place," Lena said, her voice steady but laced with a quiet urgency. "Somewhere to regroup. Somewhere to plan our next move." "Agreed," Rivera said. "There's a small colony near the edge of this sector. It's not much, but it'll do. We can lay low, get our bearings, and figure out what to do next." Lena nodded. "Set a course. We need to make sure we don't attract any more attention." As Rivera input the coordinates, Dr. Parks checked on the children, his face softening as he spoke to them. "You're safe now. We'll get you the help you need. Rest for now. We're not far from a place where you can get medical care." One of the children, a boy named Ethan, looked up at Lena, his eyes wide and innocent. "Are we going home?" he asked, his voice trembling. Lena's heart clenched. "Home. What was home now? The world they had known was gone, replaced by the horrors of what the aliens had done to them. She couldn't give the children false hope, not when she wasn't even sure what their future held. "We're going to find a place where you'll be safe," Lena said softly, her voice steady. "And we'll make sure you can live the life you deserve." The pod continued to drift through the cold emptiness, the distant stars a reminder that there was still so much out there. Lena thought about the long road ahead, the road that would lead to finding answers, to understanding the aliens' true intentions, and to ensuring humanity's survival. But now there was something else she had to consider: the children. They were the key to humanity's future. They were more than just survivors. They were something greater. Ellie, who had been silent for a while, suddenly spoke up, her voice filled with determination. "We'll help," she said quietly, looking at Lena. "We can help. We know things. We can do things." Lena turned to face the girl, her brow furrowing in curiosity. "What do you mean?" Ellie's eyes shone with a quiet brilliance, an intensity that matched the prodigy-like abilities she had displayed earlier. "The aliens, how they control their technology. It's not just hardware. It's connected to the way they think. I can see it. I can understand it. And I can help break it. We can take them down. We can stop them." The realization hit Lena like a shockwave. These children were more than just survivors. They were the future of humanity's resistance. They had abilities, potential, that no one could have predicted. Ellie wasn't the only one. They had all shown signs of extraordinary resilience, intelligence, and strength, even in the face of the most unimaginable horrors. Together, they represented the hope that humanity had long thought lost. Lena's eyes hardened with resolve. "Then we'll fight," she said, her voice clear and unwavering. "We'll fight for you. We'll fight for all of humanity, and we'll take back what was stolen from us." The pod continued its journey through the darkness, the stars stretching endlessly before them. They didn't know what awaited them on the other side, but one thing was certain: this was only the beginning. The war wasn't over, it was just starting. And this time, humanity wasn't going to be the ones who were underestimated.